What does religion have to do with a candy bar? My name is Dr. Richard Newton, and in this episode, we're going to talk about classification and why words matter. It's your introduction to religious studies, and it's coming up right now. My hope is that at this point in our introduction to the study of religion, you're coming to realize that the world around us doesn't just simply exist as is, that it's the product of a number of social processes, some of which we're aware of, some of which we don't give a second thought to. Now, this notion that the world results from our actions and our interactions with each other is called social construction. It's a recognition that what we call things matters a great deal. As Mary Douglas said, dirt is simply matter out of place, but what we call things, the labels that we apply, the actions that we do around those processes of labeling and naming, puts matter and people in their place. More specifically, this process of labeling and naming involves prescription as much as it involves description. That what we describe with our words also creates a framework for us to have expectations about how things should be, how things appear, what is right and what is wrong. This understanding is something that scholars call classification. And as the scholars at the University of Alabama's Department of Religious Studies say, classification is a political act. Now let's think about all of this with a case study. Did you know that from 1993 to 2020, Alabama public state lawmakers prohibited yoga from being taught in public schools? True story. Yoga was seen by lawmakers as a form of Hindu religion. And I find it interesting that they name it as Hindu religion because while yoga certainly has historical roots to what we call Hinduism and to traditions in India, I think that word Hindu, that classification as Hindu, actually was a sticking point for those who would think of America as a Christian nation. So by calling it Hindu religion, yoga was seen as being out of place. Furthermore, the idea that it was a religion in general meant that the practice of yoga was a violation of the separation of church and state. So it was something that was barred by First Amendment protections. Another thing that came up in the deliberations about whether yoga was fitting public schools was yoga's ability to, what lawmakers called, produce dissociative states, which is a fancy way of saying it could create out of mind and out of body experiences. The breathing, the chanting, the meditation could take someone out of their person and alter their focus. And so it was seen as sort of harmful or just not befitting what should be done or could be done to kids in a public school. So as a result, from 1993 to 2020, yoga was barred from public schools. Well, that's not exactly true because there were some key exceptions. And guess what? They have to do with classification. Stretches were okay. Poses, okay. As long as you didn't use yoga terminology. Mindfulness practices, all okay, as long as you didn't use yoga terminology. Now, you might be thinking, what is yoga if it's not stretches and poses and mindfulness? You could take a class in yoga at the rec center or at a local studio, and you're going to see, right? We expect to see stretches, poses, mindfulness, breathing, right? But the sticking point for Alabama public school lawmakers was this notion of Hindu religion, dissociative states, and more specifically, the term itself, yoga. You can do the thing, but what you call it mattered a great deal. Classification matters.